Sanwanani and welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me again today. I'm Solana of Bright Spark Astrology, and today I want to talk about Jupiter in Leo. Jupiter in Leo starts June 2026 and it's going to last until June 2027. Now this is a major shift from the energy that we've been used to the past year, and it's going to be good and it's going to be bad. So every 12 years, Jupiter comes back to Leo and it brings a renewed focus to Leo themes, which are leadership, creativity, entertainment, public figures, education, religion, etc. This year, the Jupiter in Leo transit is going to be quite turbulent because it's happening among so many other transits at the same time that are affecting it. So I'm ready to get into it. Let's do it. So Jupiter, you might have heard, it's known as the planet of luck, of positivity, of good things, right? But let's break it down. Where does that come from? Jupiter is about growth and expansion. It rules beliefs, religion, philosophy, higher education, knowledge, wealth and abundance, law, ethics, and justice, teachers, mentors, and guides, as well as future possibilities. So, because Jupiter's nature is to grow and expand things, that means Jupiter, when it comes around, it'll open things up. It'll provide possibilities, different avenues, solutions, various moments or chances to grow beyond where you are initially. And so that can be a positive thing. It also depends on the other transits, your own natal signature, etc. And because Jupiter is associated with wisdom and faith and belief, a big part of faith and belief is having hope. It's about having the wisdom to trust in the all-knowing, in the bigger energy that's running life. Whether you call that the universe or Allah or God, there is a bigger creator energy that teaches us to have faith. You need to trust. You need to be positive. You need to believe. So you can see how that can bring hope and optimism to a situation. Jupiter makes things bigger. But because of this, it can be good and bad. Jupiter expands whatever it touches. It can amplify some not so positive things, and to the point where it's just too much. There's access. Leo is associated with kings, leaders, celebrities, public figures, creativity, artistic expression, celebration, joy, play, fun, performance, entertainment, pride, honor, reputation, etc., etc., etc. Leo inspires courage, generosity, and confidence, but at its worst, can manifest as ego, vanity, entitlement, right? So, putting these together very loosely, we've got the planet of expansion in the sign of kings, leaders, and public figures. And already we can immediately go, okay, so this transit is going to bring more focus, amplify, bring more conversation around celebrities and public figures and kings, etc. Leo is also the sign of identity, of the self. And so Jupiter there can make us feel a lot more confident, a lot more positive, a lot more hopeful. But the other side of that is that it can go to the extreme. It can lead or spill over into excess, where that becomes narcissism, self-aggrandizement, arrogance, egotistical behavior, entitlement, excessive displays of power, and so on and so on. So yeah, Jupiter in Leo is going to expand conversation around public figures. It's also going to make us feel a lot more creative, a lot more expressive as well, whether that's in our art or just being more courageous, more bold to express who we are. And that's why you'll see the fashion will change, the music will change. People will be choosing bolder palettes, bolder colors, bolder statements with how they express themselves, which is a big part of fashion, music, etc. Leo's also tied to the entertainment industry. Yes, by virtue of it being tied to celebrities, but also because Leo is about performing. It's about shining, it's about being on stage. And so Jupiter is bringing a huge focus into this area of life. There will be some positive manifestations of this, and there will also be some not so positive manifestations of it. Before I get into that, I want to note that Jupiter in Leo is not going to be pure Jupiter in Leo energy because we're going to get the South Node also entering Leo, and that'll bring the eclipses into the Leo Aquarius axis. And then Jupiter is going to be opposing Pluto by sign for the entire time that it's in there, and it's going to be trine Neptune and Saturn in Aries. That energy is pretty significant for how we will eventually experience Jupiter in Leo.
So Jupiter in Leo will definitely expand individual visibility, personal brands, public recognition, people becoming known for what they create, what they put out there. The desire to have an audience will be on the rise, and cultural fascination with exceptional individuals. What happens when the self becomes a source of influence? And that's something we're going to unpack a bit later. But what happens when a society becomes increasingly organized around individual personalities? And this is a great question when we also start thinking about the opposition of Leo, which is Aquarius. And we've got quite a lot of Aquarius energy happening as well. We will get to that later. But yeah, the entertainers, the creators, the personalities will be more culturally significant while Jupiter is in Leo. This era is more about culture being organized or people following someone because of who they are more than what they produce, the personality becoming the product. So we've seen some interplay of this already with influencers, but Jupiter coming back into Leo is going to magnify this phenomenon. When your personality becomes the product, now we get the question, how much can you really monetize your identity? There is something incredibly powerful about being able to turn your creativity into a livelihood, but Jupiter and Leo can also amplify to the point where the creator and the creation become inseparable. Not just selling your work now, you're selling yourself. Your face becomes part of the product, like your personality. Your life is the content, your opinions are content, your identity is the content. And eventually there can be pressure to continuously perform the self because the self is what's generating attention. Jupiter in Leo can make recognition itself a form of social currency. The person who commands attention acquires influence, and influence produces opportunity. Opportunity produces more visibility, and the cycle just keeps feeding itself. This doesn't only apply to entertainment or social media. We see it in politics as well. Politics increasingly becoming about individuals at the top, their personality, their image, character, lifestyle, family, their personal brand, and their ability to command attention. Now, Jupiter and Leo therefore expand the importance of the individual as a cultural force, right? But personality is an interesting topic because it also involves politicians. And Leo also has to do with leadership. Jupiter in Leo is going to confront us with a bunch of situations where we ask ourselves, how exactly are we choosing our leaders? Why are we following these people? Are we choosing our leaders because of what they represent or because of who they are? And that's going to be a very important question when you think about everything else that's going to be happening while Jupiter is in Leo. So, as much as Jupiter in Leo is not exalted like it was in Cancer, Jupiter doesn't mind being in Leo because they've got an understanding on certain things. So, this is the time for you to believe in yourself, for you to trust in your abilities, your creations, and put yourself out there, allow yourself to be seen. And if you are encountering or confronting a block that is stopping you from being able to let yourself be seen or enjoy visibility, then this is a powerful time for you to work on healing that part of your soul. This is an excellent time for shadow work that centers around identity and self-esteem. And I call this solar shadow work. My readings are already focused on shadow work, but I also do have a PDF that helps you work with the solar shadow. Jupiter in Leo will be expanding influence. It will be bestowing recognition amongst those who are worthy at this period in time. And why shouldn't you be one of them? So, self work right now, working on your self concept, because self concept and self esteem are two different things. And perhaps we can talk about that in a separate video. But working on your self concept, working on your self esteem, working on your sense of self worth, working on the beliefs that you have about who you are is a major, major part of this story. That is how we upgrade. So the last time Jupiter was in Leo 12 years ago, think back to how were you approaching or developing your identity at that time? What did you understand about yourself? What did you begin telling yourself? What narrative have you been playing out since then? And which parts of that need to be strengthened and which parts of that need to be completely rewritten? A return, even if it's not a planet coming back to the same place it was when you were born, a return to a sign shows is a major reset within that area. And right now we have a massive opportunity to upgrade, to jump timelines just by working on our self concept, our self esteem, and healing our identity wounds, our self expression wounds, our I can't be myself because wounds. Okay. Now, Jupiter enters Leo during Cancer season. So that means while the sun is still in Cancer. But not long after, the sun switches over to Leo and meets up with Jupiter there. But before all of that, Jupiter meets up with Pluto first, because Pluto has been in Aquarius for some time now, shaking things up. So when Jupiter enters Leo, it's faced with the opposition from Pluto. Pluto is more about control and power and dominance. So when you've got Jupiter and Pluto opposing each other in the axis of the individual versus the collective, then we start facing questions of individual power versus collective power, powerful people versus the system, individuals versus the system. And so you also get people trying to manipulate the truth for themselves, people fighting for freedom. But whose freedom? What kind of freedom? And whose freedom is being sacrificed for the sake of this other group's freedom? We get a lot of questions about who's actually in power, what's the correct process for things to happen. Pluto also has this excavation quality. It brings things up from beneath the surface, and that can be a very uncomfortable situation where something you didn't know, a secret, a power play, just how much power somebody has or doesn't. Suddenly you see it, it's all laid out bare in the light, but that also provides an opportunity to change that situation now, to redistribute that power, to balance between the individual's needs versus the needs of the collective. When the sun meets up with Jupiter, this will be amplified because the sun is also illumination. So the sun is going to now show us exactly what the freedom is, the power plays, what Pluto has been doing in Aquarius since 2024. Now, Pluto in Aquarius, you remember, is a destabilization of already existing structures that have become outdated. If you look around at what's happening in the world, and you can see there's a lot of pressure on governments to overhaul their systems or to at least rethink how they are dealing with certain issues that are systematic, like, for example, immigration. It's not isolated to South Africa, it's a global phenomenon. And the government or the governing bodies are facing the issue of how do we update the system? Remember, Jupiter is not entering Leo in isolation. It's not going to be pure Jupiter energy. We're entering the Leo Aquarius nodal cycle. So where the south node is in Leo. So while Jupiter is busy expanding Leo, the south node is going to come in and ask us to release something from Leo. So first we see a great deal of Leo material coming to the surface: the individual, the celebrity, the leader, the performer, the creator, the ego, the desire for recognition, the cult of personality, the need to be special. But then the South Node says, okay, what is actually worth preserving from that Leo principle? What has become excessive? What don't we need anymore? And that's where the Aquarius side of things becomes important, because Aquarius asks us to move from look at this exceptional individual towards, okay, what does this individual contribute to something larger than themselves? Jupiter in Leo is going to magnify the role of the individual in culture, in creativity, entertainment, leadership, politics, commerce, public life. But the Leo Aquarius nodal shift simultaneously forces us to reconsider how much power, how much attention, how much importance we give to the individual in the first place. Jupiter and the South Node in Leo together start out in an opposition to Pluto. So at the very beginning of this cycle, it's the individual against collective power. It's not just the expansion of the individual, but what happens when individual influence has to come up against larger systems, institutions, networks, concentrations of power. And you can also think of the toxic fan bases, stan wars. It's just one person, the individual, the quote unquote celebrity, against this massive hate train, against this huge crowd of people attacking them. Jupiter and the South Node in Leo are sort of doing opposite things. So Jupiter is expanding, the South Node is draining, it's releasing, it's taking things away. The South Node in Leo, briefly, there'll be a video on the nodal shift specifically. So just briefly, the South Node in Leo is about releasing certain Leo themes. So we'll see a move away from cult of personality, away from people who just want to be special just for the sake of. We move away from spectacle, from ego, leaving behind certain aspects of our identity. That's the South Node in Leo. And then when we put it together with Jupiter in Leo, Jupiter being, remember, kings, celebs, mentors, and teachers, and the South Node can be quite malefic. So sometimes it manifests as loss or taking away something. So we can see at its worst or at its extreme the death of notable, powerful figures. Back in 2009, the South Node was in Leo, and there was the passing of Michael Jackson, which was a huge, huge, huge moment in pop culture, in entertainment, in national and global history. So with Jupiter and the South Node together, we get loss of influence as well. People losing their titles, their roles, or choosing to let them go and step away from that side of their identity. People choosing to leave certain mentors or leaders or guides behind because their worldview might have changed, their beliefs are now in flux, they're questioning, or the mentor mentee relationship has reached a natural conclusion. But this era does speak to a loss or a release or taking away of certain beliefs, certain mentors, certain paths, certain ways of viewing the world. Jupiter is also higher learning, higher knowledge, and that could be the end of certain ways of teaching and learning, the end of certain articulation paths in schools, the end of certain courses and curriculums, the end of certain schools, or them changing direction completely, maybe getting back to what they used to represent before, or deciding to go in a more progressive direction, in a more future oriented and technologically driven direction. And then there's the question of law. Jupiter is associated with law, right? And ethics and morals. And that is a bit concerning when we see the South Node of release coming to Jupiter of freedom, of the law. And so we might see certain laws being undone, maybe having to be reintroduced, as the South Node can also bring back things from the past. And this brings me to the next part of the South Node and Jupiter meeting up in Leo. We can see the rise of certain influential people coming back into the public or coming back into the spotlight, past leaders, past teachers coming back into our lives. And if that does happen, there's a karmic thread that is yet to be resolved or completed in relation to the story that is returned in our lives. Jupiter also forms a sextile to Uranus and Mars in Gemini during its stay in Leo. So the Mars contact is going to be relatively brief because Mars will leave Gemini, but Uranus will be in Gemini for 7 years. So Uranus will be in Gemini for the entire duration of Jupiter in Leo. There is a much longer connection between Jupiter's expansion of Leo and Uranus's disruption in Gemini. That brings technology, communication, information, ideas, new ways of connecting people into this story. It will accelerate the ways in which individuals gain visibility and influence through new technologies, new forms of communication. With the South Node's involvement here, this could be a reinvention of old popular platforms. Jupiter in Leo is going to expand the individual's ability to reach people, which continues the story of Pluto opposing Jupiter. Now, Pluto in Aquarius is redistribution of power through networks. And with the opposition to Jupiter, that affects who has influence or which individuals are or remain influential or become influential. Jupiter is also trining Saturn and Neptune in Aries. This is important because now Jupiter has a supportive relationship with both structure and vision in Aries, the sign of action, of courage. So this is an opportunity to take something that begins as an idea, a creative impulse, or a personal vision, and actually build something around it. Now remember, Jupiter only expands what it finds. It doesn't expand things out of thin air. Jupiter will give as much as you give. So if you are not taking advantage of this energy, then guess what? It'll disappear and you will feel nothing. But if you choose to use this energy to take risks, to improve your personal branding, your sense of self, your offerings, your creations that you put out into the world, if you actually put energy and effort into that, you will be rewarded. Now, Jupiter also squares Chiron in Taurus. That brings us back to questions of value. What do you believe is valuable? What makes something or someone valuable? What happens when our desire to expand runs into questions of security and resources and self-worth? Now we're back to that self-concept. There's a square here, meaning it's tension. The growth is in tension with our wound, our value wound. Whatever is the reason for you feeling like you don't deserve to be seen or you don't deserve recognition, where does that come from? That Chiron wound, you need to investigate it, even if you don't have any planets in Taurus. Chiron is going to show us whatever it is that we're struggling with in that Taurus sector of our lives, even if we don't have planets there, because we all have a Venus. When it comes to visibility, you have to believe that you are valuable, that you are worthy, that you deserve it, so that you don't lose it should it come or sabotage it. So you can bask in it and enjoy it as the Leo wants to do. So whatever blockages that you will be uncovering during this time are important for your growth and for your self-esteem. If you don't believe that what you are putting out there is valuable, or if you don't believe you are valuable, then what's going to happen? Are you going to accept those opportunities to put yourself out there? No, you're going to keep doubting yourself, and the doubt is going to confirm your deepest fears, because the more you doubt is the more you don't act, and the more you don't act is the more you don't get what you want. Questions of insecurity, of resources. Oh, but I don't have enough. Oh, but I really. So all of these people that have what you want deserve it more than you. That is a problem in your self concept. It's a problem of the beliefs that you have about yourself, and that's where that shadow work comes in. Even if you do get to be successful, you can be very successful and still not feel like it's enough. Then in September, Mars is going to enter Leo. Now, Mars and Jupiter do very different things. Where Jupiter provides possibilities and opportunities and options, Mars wants to choose one and do, right? Mars acts. Jupiter creates the opportunities, but Mars brings the momentum. It pushes things forward. It introduces urgency, competition, conflict. It might not necessarily be that Jupiter wants you to create something new. This can be about reconnecting with past talents and past gifts that we may have taken for granted. And then the Mars is going to come and act as a trigger, because Mars in Leo will make us feel much, much, much more courageous. When I said this is Leo energy on steroids, I really meant it, because Mars and Jupiter in Leo can both tend toward the excess of self-belief, which can inevitably be too much ego, too much self-belief in what you can do. It's good to believe in yourself, but taking on too much is just going to lead to burnout, or it's going to lead to broken promises, and that is going to compromise how people feel about you and your work. So there will also be old patterns around recognition, ego, and competition that are going to come back, and you're going to have to do something about them. This is part of the healing journey. Mars is going to come and trigger this access side of Leo to show us which parts of the Leo energy we need to release. Mars and Jupiter together, doing too much. Just being overly extra, and that can cause injuries, physical and otherwise. Mars is going to stay in Leo until November. Jupiter and Mars together can be like conflicts around belief systems. And because Jupiter in Leo can be dogmatic, believing that they are the right one, that is the right way, both sides want to push their own narrative and no one is willing to step down. With Jupiter, Mars, and Pluto all together, this could be a very volatile period of power plays and power dynamics. What's really worth it? Because this can also escalate to actual violence and physical tension. Yeah, so this is tough energy. For example, in my chart, I have Leo in my 11th house. And so with all this increased visibility online, that Mars coming in there can get me into some hot water or heated debates online regarding philosophies and beliefs and whatnot. And because now I know, I will not be trying to enter conversations or debates about religion and whatnot, because one, that's a very personal, touchy subject. And with all these planets in Leo, it is absolutely going to feel like a personal attack to attack somebody's beliefs. So that's just something to be cautious about around that time. Mars comes back to Leo though, because Mars is going to retrograde in January. So Mars comes back to Leo in January, and that's a second activation. So you really want to be careful. But what it is you start in September when that Mars enters Leo, or what it is that you say and do because of the retrograde in January. Now, the retrograde is going to ask us to redo certain things that we may have done in September. So something that was initiated or accelerated will come back for review when Mars retrogrades. Mars isn't necessarily going to destroy what Jupiter is doing, but it is going to test it. It's going to reveal where something has been rushed, where there's now competition, or where we're fighting for recognition, fighting to be seen. That's really where the fight with um, beliefs comes in. Everybody wants to be recognized, or everybody wants their beliefs to be recognized. It's also going to reveal where our desire to act has maybe overtaken the larger vision. So because this is all happening with the South Node in Leo, all of this, some of what's been activated is exactly what we are being asked to outgrow. Now, let's take a look back to the last time the South Node was in Leo. That was from January 2008 to July 2009. 2008 was a major year for the expansion of individual visibility and the power of personality. Example number one, Barack Obama. He became the Democratic presidential nominee and then won the U.S. presidential election, becoming the first Black president of the U.S. His campaign was heavily built around personal identity, charisma, oratory, and the ability to turn an individual personality into a powerful political movement. He represented something bigger than himself. At the same time, social media was just beginning to transform how individuals could participate in public life. Facebook was expanding rapidly beyond its original university audience. Just to take this Facebook example a bit deeper, in 2008, in April 2008, Facebook officially overtook MySpace in global unique monthly visitors, permanently seizing the crown as the world's largest social network. They hit 100 million users in 2008, and Mark Zuckerberg was ranked as the world's youngest self-made billionaire by Forbes at age 23, entirely off of the valuation of Facebook. It expanded internationally in early 2008, which is part of why it dethroned MySpace. YouTube was also becoming an increasingly important platform for user-generated content. Expanding a bit about YouTube, They had some major milestones in 2008, the first viral election. The 2008 US presidential campaign was dubbed the first YouTube election. Their campaign videos, debates, political parodies went viral on a massive scale, proving the platform's power to influence real world politics. Twitter was beginning to change how public figures communicated directly with audiences. Expanding a bit on Twitter, 2008, Twitter had massive user growth. It started the year processing about 300,000 tweets a day, and it ended up with 2.5 million per day, with about 70% of its total user base at the time joining in 2008. Facebook tried to acquire Twitter in 2008, and that was rejected. And then the hashtag actually blew up in 2008. It was invented in 2007, but 2008 is the year where it became widely adopted. So this is a very relevant Leo Aquarius thread because it brings together two seemingly opposite developments, which is the rise of the individual public personality and the rise of networked collective participation. There was also the financial crisis of 2008 that exposed the relationship between individual power and larger systems. Major financial institutions failed or required intervention, while governments became heavily involved in stabilizing the financial system. The contrast between individual wealth and influence and the larger systems that sustain society was big. It grew too big. Culturally, this was also a time when the celebrity, reality TV, and personal visibility were becoming increasingly central to pop culture. The idea that an ordinary person could turn their personality and personal life into a public career was becoming more established. What's interesting about the financial crisis of 2008 is that Jupiter and Pluto also had an interaction, or they met during this time. Jupiter was in Capricorn and Pluto had recently ingressed into Capricorn. So they were co-present within the same sign. And now we see an opposition between Jupiter and Pluto. And again, we're seeing similar themes of who gets to hold all the power, all the resources, and how does that influence the collective. Looking back at 2008, 2009, there are several themes that fit the Leo Aquarius axis: the individual becoming a public figure, the rise of personality driven politics, the expansion of individual voices through technology, the growth of networked communities, and the tension between individual power and larger systems. This time, we have Jupiter moving through Leo. So it's a little bit more cushioned because Jupiter will be there joining the South Node, helping to sort of round out the rougher edges of this transit. Now, the technological landscape has changed dramatically since 2008. What was beginning to emerge then has become a major part of how society functions now. In 2008, social platforms were expanding the reach of the individual, and now an individual's visibility can be turned directly into an audience, a business, a political platform, a community, or a career overnight, literally in the palm of your hands. The infrastructure for personal influence is far more developed. We are revisiting these themes at a much larger scale in a world where the relationship between individual identity, visibility, networks, and power has become far more deeply embedded in everyday life. Now let's look at some Jupiter in Leo horoscopes, starting with the Jupiter return. If in your birth chart you have Jupiter in Leo, that means you are going through your Jupiter return. You are entering a major new 12-year cycle around self-expression, creativity, visibility, leadership, and your individual gifts. This is a good time to take your potential more seriously, become more willing to put your work, ideas, and talents into the world. This can be a period of significant growth in your creative abilities, confidence, and willingness to occupy space. But remember, Jupiter only expands as much as the effort that you are willing to put in. If you put in effort, you'll find yourself receiving more opportunities to develop something that has always come naturally to you. But recognition doesn't just arrive here, especially with the South Node. The South Node is going to show us what is missing, what is old, where is development still required in the Leo area of our charts. You'll confront the difference between having a natural talent and having fully developed and trained that talent. So Jupiter will make your potential more visible, but that visibility will also expose where growth is still needed. This can be uncomfortable, especially if you've already identified strongly with being talented or being creative or exceptional in this area. But it's not that you're not capable. Your natural ability is only the beginning. It needs to be honed. It needs to be trained and developed. The South Node will strip away some of the ego attached to being naturally gifted and show you where you still have work to do. Recognition is not a substitute for development. The Jupiter return is about growing into your potential rather than simply being recognized for having it. It's not enough to be seen as just talented or creative or exceptional. You have to develop those qualities to their fullest expression. Because it's both Jupiter and the South Node, the process might involve both opportunity and exposure. So you'll be given a larger platform while at the same time being shown exactly why you aren't ready for that platform yet. The September conjunction with Mars can bring a major push for you to act on your talents, while Mars's later retrograde will return to Leo and bring you back to that same question of what have I developed, what still needs work, am I ready for the level of visibility that I want? Now, Aries rising, this is a major period for putting more of yourself into what you create and allowing your talents to become more visible. Take your creative projects more seriously. Become comfortable with being seen for what you do. Release the need for external validation and use this energy to create, perform, take a risk with your talents, with your projects. Taurus, so growth is going to come from changing your relationship with where you come from and what you consider home. Invest more into your living situation, your family, to creating a stronger foundation for yourself and to creating a sanctuary for yourself within your home. What you're building, the life you're building, does it actually reflect who you are now? Or are you still carrying some inherited beliefs, inherited expectations from your family? Now, some of these are good for you to keep, but some of them are simply holding you back. There may be a clash with family around beliefs and ideology and philosophy. If all parties involved can remember to respect each other's worldviews and still be open-minded about hearing each other out, there's potential for developing or building stronger bonds. Gemini rising, your voice can become much more influential during this period. This is particularly significant for the writers, the teachers, the content creators, for anyone who's building an audience around their ideas. New technologies, new ways of communicating can dramatically expand your reach. And it's not just about getting more attention. Decide what you actually want to say with all this attention. Cancer rising, this will be a significant period for turning your abilities into something materially sustainable. There's a strong emphasis on monetizing what you already have, your talents, your knowledge, your creativity, or your personal resources. But Jupiter can also expand spending and the desire for things that make you feel successful. So watch out for overspending. You also need to learn to separate your genuine self-worth from the need to demonstrate your self-worth from what you own, what you earn, or how many followers you have. Leo rising. You are entering a new cycle of personal expansion. You are becoming more visible, you're developing your identity and taking yourself more seriously as an individual. You may feel a stronger urge to change how you present yourself and pursue opportunities that require you to step forward. But some version of you has run its course. You have to learn, you have to figure out which part of this identity needs to be released so that you don't expand while carrying this outdated identity with you into the next chapter. Virgo rising is a period of developing your inner world, working behind the scenes and releasing patterns that have quietly shaped your life. Some forms of isolation and self-sabotage are going to become more obvious for you now. Now, this is a period of understanding what needs to be cleared before your next major cycle of outward growth, before Jupiter comes into your first house next year and says, okay, I'm ready to be seen. Libra rising, your social world will become larger. Your ability to influence a wider community will grow. This is particularly strong for building an audience around your work or finding people who share your vision. However, reconsider which groups actually support your growth and which connections are based on old versions of yourself. Jupiter is expanding your network, but you must still decide who belongs in it. Scorpio rising. This can be one of the most significant periods of professional growth in the 12-year Jupiter cycle. You will become more visible, receive greater recognition, or step into a role that places you more prominently in the public eye. But you will also be exposed to the difference between genuine accomplishment and simply being recognized, between potential and living up to it. So consider that this period is more than just about getting people to know your name, but what exactly do you want to be known for? Sagittarius rising. Your understanding of life is going to become much larger. You will feel compelled to teach, publish, study, or share what it is that you've studied. This is especially important for anyone whose work involves communicating a philosophy or belief system. Your beliefs may be tested, and you may choose to release some of them, as the South Node asks you to examine where has certainty become dogma. Growth only comes from continuing to learn, not assuming you've already found the answer. So stay open to other worldviews, other experiences, other beliefs that differ from your own. Capricorn rising. This will be growth through financial arrangements with other people or through confronting matters you've previously preferred to keep beneath the surface. Jupiter will increase your access to shared resources, to other people's resources, but it will also increase obligation and duty. You are learning more about trust and power here. You need to learn when to share and when to maintain your autonomy, when to avoid tying your sense of worth to what other people can provide for you. Aquarius. Other people can become much more significant in your life during this period. New partnerships, new friendships, existing relationships becoming larger or more significant, more consequential. More options when it comes to dating, more options when it comes to the different relationships you could be part of. But this transit is also asking you to reconsider how much of yourself are you giving away in order to maintain a relationship. There's a balance that needs to be constantly maintained with the individual and the partnership in your own life. Pisces rising. This bring you more work, more opportunities to make your everyday life more productive and meaningful. You will develop new skills, take on a greater responsibility, or build something through consistent effort. But there's a danger here of associating doing more with actual growth. But keeping busy, simply doing more is not genuine growth. You need to release those habits that are keeping you performing endlessly for recognition but not leading anywhere. Your work should support your life rather than consume it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you gained some meaningful insight and hope to see you again in the next one. Bye.